Hello, everyone. Thank you to our in-person and virtual participants for joining this session. It's my first parallel session, so please bear with me as we navigate the both in-person and online participation. My name is Mariam Rabi. I'm with SDSN Trends, so that's the Thematic Research Network on Data and Statistics at the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Um, we are going to be talking about data innovations as part of the Data for Now initiative today. So for those who aren't familiar with the Data for Now initiative, it was launched in 2019. It's a country-led initiative with the mission to support countries' capacity on delivering on data for the SDGs. We started with about 8 pilot countries, I believe, in the beginning, and the initiative has expanded to a large number of countries and various data innovations consisting of geospatial data and technologies, citizen-generated data, and other data innovations that we're going to hear about from participating countries today. So first off, we have Mrs. Francesca Perucci, Assistant Director of the United Nations Statistics Division. So we're going to hear some opening remarks from her, and then we're going to move on to some of the participating countries and hear about some of the projects that they're leading. Over to you, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Miriam, and welcome everyone, those who join us here in the room and those who are watching us remotely. If our dear colleagues can help me bring the PowerPoint on the screen. Meanwhile, I just reiterate what Miriam was saying. This is a very important initiative for us, in particularly because it's a joint initiative by 4 entities. It's ourselves in the UN, the Statistics Division, together with the World Bank, the SDSN Trends, as Miriam highlighted, and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. And also it's a very important initiative because it interlinks really well with all the new data programs that we have collectively worked on since the beginning of the SDGs, and especially more recently with the launch of new data initiatives like the work that was recently approved by the UN Statistical Commission on citizen-generated data, which will have a huge contribution to the implementation of the data for now in countries, I'm sure. Yes, if you can please. Oh, I have my own. Sorry, I have my own. Okay. I just wanted to show what is different that we do with the Data for Now initiative from other types of projects and collaborations we've been having with countries over the years. Uh, I would, these are the principles that have been agreed by the 4 key entities who have collaborated on this project. And I'd like to invite you to visit the website at the end of this presentation. I'll show you the link where you can navigate this and read the details of these principles and also other aspects of how the project and the initiative is being implemented. But I just like to mention a few that are particularly important and new. Number one, the big red circles, is principle 1, which is that the priorities are always identified by the countries. So we're not offering solutions that we feel like they will work and on specific areas or on specific topics or parts of the SDG agenda. We go to the country, we engage with all stakeholders. Our entry point, especially when we go from the statistics division, our entry point is the statistical office. But then we bring the UN country teams, the resident coordinator office, all our colleagues that work, from the other entities, World Bank, SDSN, Trans, GPSDD, and all the stakeholders that the country deems necessary to engage with, and to address and to assess, define the priorities, and then to agree together with all the partners what the most urgent needs are, so that they can start working on those technical solutions to fill the data gaps, or make those data that they already produce more timely and more granular. Um, there's of course, all of you, I'm sure, been involved in similar work. You know that those are the two biggest challenges when we produce and use the data for the implementation, the full implementation of the SDG agenda, the level of granularity to make sure that all groups of the population are covered in the data, and the timeliness that is needed to both inform the policies and the interventions, and to monitor progress. But then we have some data principles. I don't want to block your, some data principles, some principles related to how we do the work, and then how how we ensure that the outcome is what is expected. So very quickly, the data principles are all related to uh, ensuring that we take the approach that is adherent with what we do normally, fulfilling the fundamental principles of official statistics, ensuring data quality, ensuring that we take a holistic approach, which means we look at the whole data value chain. We just don't focus on production, but on the use of data and the impact of data, etc. And then we have principles that pertain to the way we carry on the work. So how we engage with partners, how we are ensure that we are inclusive, so any country can join as long as they agree with this approach and they want to be on board, any country can join. And we try and promote also the idea that when you are a partner, as an entity, as an organization, as a country, to dedicate some resources to it. So we all try. We also have received contributions from donors that have been quite generous and have allowed us to work in countries that did not necessarily have all the resources they needed. So that's a little bit on the type of work. A user-centric approach, of course, is very, very important. Knowledge sharing, everything we do, we try to then make it applicable to the largest number of countries and situations possible, so that, you know, we can build and scale up the work we do. Um, I forget one thing that I wanted to mention, and that is the focus on production-ready solutions. I think that's a very important principle also. We do not want to pilot or test, you know, and use, you know, the countries just to test something new. We want something that we know can work and can deliver immediate results and impact, so that the country, the data system in the country can address their needs. So, and then finally, sustainability. Of course, everything has to be continued once, you know, the collaboration ends, either with funds or without funds. But, you know, everything we do together has to be to sort of set the foundations for the work then to be continued, expanded, and possibly applied to other parts of the SDG agenda. And agile impact and value creation. Again, you know, you want data for impact. So this is a little bit very quick overview, but again, you know, on our website, we have a lot of material, information, results of inspirations workshops that we held with countries, trying to go through this whole process and see, you know, how we can get the best value out of the initiative. So just to give you a little bit as the flavor of what's been done. As Miriam was saying, we had 8 initial countries. We then added, thanks to the generous contribution of 2 bilateral donors, the Italian government and the Norwegian NORAD, Norwegian Cooperation Agency, we were able to add more countries, but the SDSN Trends and GPSDD and the World Bank also had their own resources to be able to advance in specific areas to advance the work. But just to give you a little bit a sense of what type of data and so data solutions we've been focusing on. First, integration of geospatial information, especially on the use of Earth observations on climate change, environmental variables, also integration of Earth observation to obtain more granular estimates of poverty in several countries, use of geospatial information on the indicator. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with one of the SDG indicators that is not necessarily the easiest to produce, but the rural population who live within 2 kilometers of an all-season road, and the land consumption rate. More citizen-generated data, as I mentioned in the beginning, that's a very important new area of work on which now also the official statistical community is focusing on. Recently, the Commission, as I said, in March this year, they approved, there is a decision that approved the establishment of a collaborative on this and the development of a framework. So increasingly, hopefully, and very soon, we'll be able to leverage this type of solutions more and more. SDSN Trends has worked on in Ghana on citizen science, on marine litter waste. World Bank and Meta are testing the use of sample surveys, integration of sample surveys with what can be done through Facebook. And of course, we, from our side, will work on and leading the work on the new collaborative on citizen data, trying to identify, in countries that are interested in advancing the work, in particular in those areas, we work very closely together. And then small area estimation. This is also a very important area of work, again, related to the estimates of poverty, food security and agriculture. A lot of countries have raised that as one of their priorities. So the work is ongoing there in several countries. Web scraping and scanner data, mobile network operators data, again, also often utilized, and countries identify priorities that can be addressed, including, for instance, for human mobility, that can be addressed with leveraging those in particular data sources. Now, a few words about how we can make this. We talk about 8 countries, a few more countries. How about all the other countries who want to join the initiative and benefit from the work that's been done until now? So the idea here is really to build on the knowledge that we have accumulated with this initial group of countries, and then find a way to scale it up and to share it. Eventually, the vision is that there will be more and more solutions that are really applicable across the board. And that's the moment when we can really offer training. That has already started, but we hope that will be done on a much larger scale, where we can offer training, bring together more countries to work on similar priorities and similar solutions. Establish partnerships. That's very important. We had envisaged, from the beginning, very close partnerships with the private sector, for instance, and entities that could offer solutions on a wide scale. That didn't really happen the way we were hoping. So we're still working on that, trying to identify what the right formula is to have these partnerships that can really be productive and effective, so that countries can use those solutions. And again, they can be applied to a much larger scale. Facilitate knowledge exchange. As I said, that's critical, and that's what we've been doing through the initiative, always sharing as much as possible the material that we produce, and having opportunities to bring the different partners together and the country participants together. Making also resources available on the website, of course. And we also now publish data stories, where you can read about how the data were produced and utilized for impact. And then finally, what I was hinting in the beginning, once we have this core mass of solutions that can be applied across the board, and more countries can find their priorities there. Once they define their policy priorities and their data gaps and their data needs, they can find all the solutions, and they can then join with other countries, and the whole implementation of the initiative can be accelerated and scaled up significantly. So last, I promised I will show you where the information is. This is, of course, you can get in touch with us. Those of you who are from national data or statistical systems or any other partners who are interested in joining the initiative, please get in touch with us or with the colleagues at SDSN Trends or GPSDD or the World Bank. But these are the links to the website. I'll stop here because we have a lot of more interesting presentations, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Francesca, for sharing the data principles, the scalability of the work, and the approach that we take in the in-country work. Just to echo what Francesca mentioned, we wouldn't be able to do this work without the support from the governments of Italy, Norway, GIZ, the Islamic Development Bank, the Wellcome Trust, and many other supporters and partners that have been part of this journey over the past couple of years. So next, we're going to hear from one of our virtual participants, Mr. Victor Cabra, an analyst at DANE, the National Statistics Office in Colombia. Victor, I'd be grateful if you could keep your presentation to under 10 minutes. Oh, great. Victor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Freya, please could you share your screen, please, for the presentation. But perfect. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to this very special event. For me, it's truly an honor to join you this morning. I'm very glad to share with you some of the experiences we have had at DANE in these couple of years with the Data for Now initiative. Next slide, please. So in the first place, I would like to thank all our partners for the Data for Now initiative, which provide financial support for this project. And we want to highlight the support from our colleagues from the Armenian National SDG Innovation Lab, which one of our technical partners in this project and this journey. And next slide, please. So the Data for Now initiative in Colombia was built upon 4 pillars. And but for this meeting, I would like to focus only on 2 of these projects: the project of the SDG 4 and the SDG 16. Next slide, please. And I would like to start to pointing out the main needs that we have regarding both of these projects in the first place. The overriding concern with the SDG 4 project was to foster the linkage between administrative data and the possibility of obtaining more granularity in the data at the subnational level. In the case of the educational information, the production of statistics has been carried out in a decentralized manner in Colombia with different systems. So the problem in this case is there is a need for increasingly accurate, timely, focused information at subnational levels that guide implementation of public policies from the national government as well as the local ones. And next slide, please. So the objective of this project is to gather information from these very different data sources to gain insights into the situation of educational system in the country in terms of coverage and dropout rates. So that's why the project seeks to measure accessibility in relation to this dropout and attendance rate. So for us, the key question in this case was, does the distance between home and school affects in some way the dropout rates from the students in the country? And the other objective is derived from it. In order to obtain this data, it is necessary to strengthen the different system and administrative records to making a robust integration of them. So the integration is based on the operability of data. And in our case, the base was the SDMX standard. Next slide, please. In this case, you can see in this slide the integration protocol that we use to integrate these different data sources, and we integrate this information with satellite images in order to calculate this distance between home and schools. But the ground database in this case was the National Census of Colombia, which is merged with the different systems that you can see here. And the idea is to, with this merge, with this interoperation, is obtain information regarding the dropout rates and also the information of the distance using satellite images. Next slide, please. So the result of this protocol and the different alternatives and strategies that we use in this project present us a preliminary results that you can see in this chart and in the next slide in the map that you can see. So in this case, for example, you can see the relation between the drop rates for 2020 and the distance on quartiles regarding these dropout rates and the distance from home to school. This is the average distance, and you can see in the first place there is no more difference between these data, but when we analyze the difference between the various departments in the country and the different years, these results are very interesting and shed light about the behavior of the dropout rates and the attendance in the country. Next slide, please. In the map, in the next slide, you can see how we can see this distance in the country. So the distance in this case is for urban areas by department in the country. And as you can see here, the department such as Amazonas in the south of Colombia on your right, and the other southern departments in the country in blue-green color present the farthest distances between home and schools, and the departments in the north of the country present the nearest distances. Next slide, please. So these results should be analyzed in light of the challenges that this work has entailed. In the case of the integration of administrative records, we don't have any unique integration protocol between these records. So in this regard, it is crucial to develop a more robust regulatory and quality framework in order to integrate these different data sources. And we think that allow us to have a more optimized integration process regarding these different data sources. And for us, it is very important the quality framework, because this framework implies a change in the organizational culture of the entity, which may be one of the main difficulties in the success of this type of initiatives. Next slide, please. For the case of the SDG 16, our main concern here was the insufficient of data for these two indicators. Next slide, please. The data gaps were identified in a policy document. The document was called Compass 3918 of 2018, where the indicator 16.b.1, indicator related to discrimination, was explicitly stated as a data gap in the national framework of indicators for the 2030 agenda. On the other indicator, there is more comprehensive, accurate, and coherent data in the country from different sources, not just DANE, but both indicators are not produced following the requirements that the metadata demands for them. Next slide, please. So you can see in the next two slides the main results for the for the project. And as you can see, for both of them, we have different approaches to the official information. So for the case of the discrimination indicator, the difference is very close, around 7 percentile points. But with the inclusive and receptive indicator, the difference is near to 20 points, 20 percentile points. So you can compare these results with the general performance metric of the models, and you have more broader perspective perspective of how we can use this social media information in order to obtain official and complementary information for different phenomena. In this case, discrimination and political participation. And these results also allow us a characterization of the phenomenon, in particularly in social media, and in this case, in Facebook. But as you can see here, we can compare the result with the official information, but this comparison should be made with caution because we don't have the representativity that we expected to have in this project. And next slide, please. So many challenges still remain in the use of these kind of data sources. For example, Facebook presents enormous challenges in data collection, processing, and analysis, as well as data privacy. So the representativeness of the data also pose a key challenge in the use of this data source. But in general terms, we consider that social media could be used as a complementary or contextual information. For example, we think we use this information as a complementary data that could help us understand what kind of tendency and phenomena related to discrimination occur in different social media. And this information could complement the official information. And next slide, please. One of the main findings that regarding the both projects is the feasibility of using these models to solve different problems, not just in DANE, but in the institutional environment in Colombia. For example, the optimization of procedural of management activities in different contexts could be one of the possible application of these models and these techniques. And we also identify the power of use citizen generated data to validate these models. Next slide, please. So what have we learned so far of the Data for Now initiative? This is one of the main lessons learned that we have from the Data for Now initiative. But let me highlight two of these lessons. The first one is the need to have a more fluent conversation with civil society, with the stakeholders, and especially with the data users of this information. It is also important to ensure a comparison and benchmarking exercise for this result with some other possible official information. And the comparison, of course, is in methodological and conceptual issues. Next slide, please. So based on what we have learned so far, we have two ongoing projects in this moment. One is centered on the creation of virtual assistants that answer questions and complaints registered from the citizens. This virtual assistant seeks to provide a more timely response in the workplace and in the work field. The SDG unit, on the other hand, is analyzing interlinkages at semantic level, gathering information from the metadata of the indicators, using some of the algorithms and models that we use in some of these projects. And the Geostatistical Directorate is working on the estimation of the indicator 7.1.1 using satellite imagery based on the experience of the SDG4 project. And of course, in that case, is very important the integration of administrative record with that satellite imagery data. And next slide, please. So we think this kind of projects can address Daniel's needs, but a broader perspective is required, of course, to take these models not just at Daniel level, but at institutional and country level. For example, based on the result of some of this project, for example, the SDG1, I don't mention this project, but time, but Dane has started to explore some small area estimation techniques in order to calculate poverty data at subnational level. And this is aligned with the government's requirement to get data in this level. For some projects, it is necessary to have a more precise follow-up. Um, and we think it's very important to disseminate these results for the a broader audience or for the data users in order to receive feedback for these experiences. And it's very important to take into account that Colombia will have regional elections in October, and in this moment, in a Colombian Congress, um, it is discussed the national development plan. So we think it's necessary to make a more clearer link between these exercises, these data gaps, and the current needs for this plan and for the possibilities for the candidates to take this information and apply it for the development of the regional plans in the next election, and of course the next year for the future governments at local level. And that's all for my part. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your comments. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. I think those were great examples of how integrating various data sources can provide insightful analysis and information on various SDGs. So thank you for that. Next, we're going to hear from Mr. Gunnar Larsen, advisor from Statistics Norway, Division of Price Statistics. Gunnar, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Due to some technical issues, I can't share my screen. So is it possible for you, Farian, to share the video?
Great, we can see your slides. Gunnar, please go ahead. We can see your slides. Oh, now we can't.
Sites is quite a manual and time-consuming activity. So in order to make this collecting more efficient, Statistics Norway has investigated the use of web scraping for some time. First off, I want to define what web scraping is, and in short, it can be described as the extraction and transformation of unstructured data from the web into structured data. It is often beneficial to web scrape by using a web scraping tool, and there are some external software tools which you can find online, but it's also possible to create in-house solutions based on programming languages such as R and Python.
Apologies, everyone. We're having some technical challenges. Just give us a moment. Fariel, I don't know if you can hear me, but can you share your screen? Great.
Of collecting
Is it working okay now?
Okay,
data
we see it
from
now.
the internet or web scraping is a possible increase of both efficiency and productivity. By automating the process of collecting data from the web, it is possible to collect more data in a shorter time compared to manual collection of web-based data. And one crucial element is that using It is true that the actual collecting of data is more efficient, but there are also more resources needed for maintaining the programs, as well as the analysis of the data collected. And I will go into more detail on this later. There is now an increase in different NSOs which are building their own technical solutions for web scraping. The benefit of creating an in-house solution is that you have a more direct control over the process compared to using external software. Using custom solutions makes it possible to tweak the program so that it fits your exact needs. It is always important to be mindful of the ethics concerning web scraping, and in order to ensure good etiquette when you are web scraping, you should always try not to hit servers or websites too frequently, because this can crash the website or potentially cause the website to slow down for other users. If possible, you should try to web scrape during off-peak hours, not when everyone else is using the website. And I would also recommend you to look into the website's terms of use. If it is specified that a certain website does not allow web scraping, it's best to leave it be and try to find some other solutions instead. So, now that we have looked at some general definitions of web scraping, it's time to look at the generalized web scraper developed in-house in Statistics Norway. Our previous experiences with web scraping have been to create separate web scraping tools specifically made for each website we wanted data from. As we gained more experience over time, we were able to take a more general approach, as many websites share a similar structure. As the tool was developed by the Division of Price Statistics, it has been tested on different areas for the CPI. But in order to create a sustainable solution, it is recommended to include the IT division as well, although this has not been the case for this web scraping tool. The tool itself was built by using Python, and since we already collected prices for the CPI manually from the web, we knew exactly which kind of data we wanted to collect. And usually the data we want is the name of the product, its price, and sometimes the technical specifications or metadata related to the product. In order to save the data, we store the output as Excel files. And afterwards, we mainly use the data to compile price indices for the CPI. There are some pros and cons when it comes to web scraping. In the case for the CPI, it can potentially give you improved price indices. This is because it can lead to a larger sample collected, and you can collect it more efficiently compared to manually collecting data from the web. And since it's more efficient, it's also possible to collect data on a more rapid basis, for example, once a day. But there are some downsides to web scraping as well. First off, it can be quite resource demanding to build a generalized web scraper. I would recommend testing web scraping for a specific website first, and then do some tests on multiple websites later on. And in addition, websites tend to change structure over time, which can lead to resource demanding maintenance in order to get the web scraping tool up and running again. Finally, I will demonstrate the web scraper by collecting price data for sewing machines. And first, I will just tell you what we actually want to collect. On the left side of the picture, you can see multiple sewing machines. And what we want to collect is the product name that I have marked in green here, and also the price, which is marked in red. And on the right side, you can see some lines of code. And these lines of code are written in a programming language called HTML and CSS. And it is this code that makes the website look and work as it does. So the code you can see on the right side here is sort of a behind the scenes on what is actually shown on the website. By having located where in the HTML code we want to collect the product name and the product price, we can use this information to web scrape the data we want. So here is the actual website that we want to web scrape data from. And here you can see you have different sewing machines with the product name and its price. And because we have inspected the HTML and CSS code earlier, we know exactly where we want to find this information on the website. So in our web scraping tool, we have already defined what we want to collect. We want the product name and the price. And we also have defined where in the HTML code we want to find it. So here you have all the input that you need in order to run the web scraper. So if we just click here, and now we see the program is running, and now it goes through all the different items on the website and collects the item product name and also its price. And now we can see the web scraper is finished, and we have an Excel file as an output, and we can just see what we have gotten. And here you can see we have collected both the product name and also the price. So we have collected it in a structured manner so that it's easy to compile for later use in the CPI. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunnar, for that presentation and very interesting demo. I know that a couple of our Data for Now countries are exploring how they can utilize web scraping for the work that they're doing. Faryal, can you please confirm if we have Mr. Mohammed Khalaf on the line? I think he was having some connectivity issues earlier.
Mariam, I could not hear you loud and clear. Can you say that again?
Do we have Mr. Mohammed Khalaf on the line?
No, we don't. Our next speaker would be Mamadou.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Mr. Mamadou Diallo. He is a small area estimation expert and a consultant for the Data for Now initiative. Mamadou, the floor is yours. Mamadou, can you hear me? Okay, I can see you. Can you hear me, Mamadou?
Mamadou, can you hear Mariam? Mamadou, you can start with your remarks now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to briefly talk about a couple of points around supporting countries around small area estimation. Most of my points, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Please continue, Mamadou.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mamadou, we can hear you. Please continue.
Thank you very much for having me today. So I will be giving some remarks around supporting countries have established a small area estimation program. So I've been supporting Ethiopia and Senegal, but I have been working before that with many countries on small area estimation. Uh, so many of my articles have been already mentioned. I have Victor presentation remarks from Francesco. So my first point here is around the integration of system to leverage census data, administrative data, and other external sources from GIS data. So it is very important to support countries uh, establish systems. So it is important to support countries integrate their systems, their survey system to be able to uh, extract data on to have local of uh, wait, I don't know if you can hear me correctly. Uh, so the second point I want to mention is the GIS. Today, GIS data is one of the main sources of physical data, preliminary information for small area estimate. Many of the countries have the capacity to leverage GIS. Uh, the GIS departments often don't have, or the less developed countries don't have the capacity to leverage GIS data. So it's important to support them build capacity in terms of the system they have, in terms of human resources, but also to help them right, they have to upgrade to be able to take full advantage of data. That can be very useful for agriculture uh, estimates, poverty estimates, and many other estimates now. Some of these examples, for example, are the platform from the Africa, which leverage, which combine uh, Earth observation information in one platform for African countries to easily not only access the data, but also have Python tools calculation more easily. It's really important to support these kind of initiatives. Uh, Also, one other point is the need of other administrative data outside the census data. Uh, Africa and developing countries in general, we have data, health programs, immunization programs, CRBS programs, education, and many other programs are routinely collected. It's true that the quality of the program usually sometimes have questions, but it's important to make sure that we use this in the one area estimation in order to gauge the quality of data, improve them, and use them uh, for the small area estimate. Of by using the quality and the quality and improve other more precise use. Uh, Another point that I want to touch briefly is the open source. R was mentioned. Those are the open source that are used for statistical and data analysis use. National statistical offices are used those solutions like SLAC, SDSN, so those who don't allow you to look into the source code, modify them. Open source R and Python do allow for uh, uh, the, the limitation or part of the challenges with open source is there's a lot of contribution from thousands of, of sources. So all the packages are not unified or like solutions. So for National Statistical Office to take full advantage of this solution, they have to have higher skills in R and Python to be able to modify these, customize them to their need. Another solution also is to support some of these players that are creating these packages to encourage them to create more comprehensive packages so NSO can have comprehensive solutions as fragmented packages in our, and that's difficult for them to use this platform. Also creating complete solutions experience, for them to see, because it's also going to be very important in adapting this platform. Lastly, I'm going to finish like capacity buildings and awareness. Uh, Modeling is not necessarily, a common techniques used in National Statistical Office. As a statistician is very used to survey sampling technique, not necessarily incorporate modeling for official statistics. So it's very important to make sure, national statistical offices in developing countries are supported to get, strong skills in modeling, and, add related to producing small instruments, efficient using using machine learning and so that they can advocate for the technology, make sure awareness is for this technique, so the policymakers and, other, planners can have enough confidence in take this estimate to use them to get, estimate at the local level, but also more real-time estimate and survey data. As you know, surveys tend to have more lags, than models. So I will stop and, looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mamadou, and apologies for the technical difficulties. We have a few minutes left for questions. So participants who have joined us virtually, if you somehow raise your virtual hand, I think the organizers can unmute you so you can ask your question. And for those in the room, please raise your hand and one of our colleagues will bring a mic to you for any questions you might have. And I hope that our presenters are still online.
Mariam, there are no questions from the virtual audience. You can go ahead with the in-person audience.
Okay, great. While we're waiting to hear from our audience in the room, maybe I can ask Gunnar and Victor, what were some of the challenges in implementing the innovative approaches that the two statistical offices are working on? Victor, Gunnar, I don't know if you can hear me.
Mariam, could you repeat the question, please? Your
Sure.
sound was not very clear virtually.
Sure. So the question is, what were some of the challenges in implementing the innovative approaches that each statistics office is undertaking? Victor, we have your video, so if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. From my point of view, the challenges always involve the development of technological capabilities and the training of expert professionals in the treatment of these data sources and methods is one of the key factors in order to success with this kind of projects. So I think some of the innovations that have been made at DANE have involved hiring experts or companies to carry out these projects, but the idea is to have this installed capacity, and this capacity remains in the entity. With the Data for Now project and with the other projects that we are developing in this moment, the idea that we have is train more or our staffs in our staff in DANE, and the idea is to use this knowledge try to apply these methodologies and have a better knowledge management in order to assure that these capacities stayed and remains in the entity. And I think other key point is the resources. Of course, funding for technological terms is essential and always presents a difficult in obtaining it. So I think the support of international stakeholders and partners played a prominent role in the success of these kind of projects.
Thank you, Victor. Would anyone else like to jump in?
Gunnar, would you like to share the challenges you faced in the implementation of web scraping for CPI?
Yes. I share some of the same views as Victor. I just wanted to add for web scraping. I work in the price department of the statistical office. So we developed the web scraping tools without the help of the IT department. So some challenge for us was the technical side of web scraping. So we had to learn how to use Python, for example, and also how to actually collect the data we want from the code that is on the website. So our challenge was to learn this from the start. So maybe if we knew that beforehand, we might have included the IT department earlier. But we also learned a lot from doing it by ourselves. So it's a trade-off on how much resources you want to use on training the price department itself on coding. So yes.
Thank you, Gunnar. Looks like we have a question. Can you please introduce yourself?
So, thank you very much for all your presentation. We have seen so many great initiatives from many countries and using data to foster innovation and initiatives. My name is Prim and I am a youth representative to this UN World Data Forum. And young people, we are the game changer because we are the one who can foster innovation, partnership, transform to the status quo, and have a better and inclusive data for all. So we have seen that we have data, and then how could we make data more accessible? Then we have data more inclusive for all people, and actually bringing data into policies level and bringing data to transform to action into a greater impact, and actually driving change from the initiatives you are creating, and how we can together partnership together to have a better and a stronger data that is inclusive, that is accessible, that is being protected, that have the right data for the right people. So, and I also have a question about the web scraping. So, don't you have the information from the private sector already? Why do you have to scrape the data, and can you just ask the data from them? And also, how can we better partner together with other people, with young people, civil society, to work together for a better inclusive data? Thank you.
Thank you. Those are very important questions. Should we start with the web scraping question? Gunnar, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, thank you for your question. So your question was if you can have a dialogue with the private sector and the different outlets. We try to do that in the initial phase of web scraping in order to ensure a good etiquette on the web. We will always inform where we web scrape. We inform them that we want to web scrape, and also hear from them if they have alternative data sources that we can use. So if they have some data they can send to us directly, that is a preferred method of collecting data. Or if they have some API solutions or something more stable than web scraping, that is definitely the preferred method. So we try to have a dialogue with the websites we web scrape from in order to get the data in the most efficient manner.
Thank you for that. Regarding the questions related to the impact of data on policy and youth engagement, I think we might need an entire session to address those questions. But would anyone virtually or Francesca like to share any final remarks? Gunnar, Victor, Mamadou, please feel free to jump in. If we don't have time to get to that question, we can definitely follow up bilaterally and we can connect you to the presenters and other. Okay, great. Looks like Victor wants to come in. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, no, just it's a very brief comment about the question. I think one of the way that the youth can connect with this uh, um, commitment and with this kind of alternative projects is with citizen science. I think this is one of the first and most interesting steps that youth can give in order to link with the official statistical information. And from the side of the statistical institutes, it is also very interesting to link with the population in general using that kind of new alternative methods like citizen science. Just one very brief comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. We have a few more questions from the audience. If we can get a mic up here, this gentleman has a question.
I'm Edmund from the Singapore Department of Statistics. Just one question. Given that many of the NSOs are moving towards using AI, ML, using R Python, would it be possible if, like, for example, UNSD have a common code repository for commonly used R and Python codes, for example, for web scraping, for data generation, linking, etc., so that it'd be easier for the NSOs to move towards the greater use of AI and ML techniques? Yeah, thanks.
Something that we need to consider. I don't know if there are any immediate responses from any of the virtual participants or presenters. Or perhaps we can collect a couple questions and then have the presenters unmute themselves. I think we had a hand raised over there. If you can share the mic.
Thank you. I'm Barbara Pernici from University Politecnico di Milano, Italy. And it was very interesting to see very many different innovative sources, but there was also an emphasis of the need of integration from different sources. And I would like to know if there are challenges which have been addressed and directions given to make this integration easier, because it could be a very difficult problem to solve also technically.
Great question. If we can get the mic to the gentleman who has his hand raised over here.
Thank you, everyone. This is Pranay Stapit from Data for Development Asia Foundation, Nepal. So I basically have two questions for Victor regarding integration of data. So especially that integration protocol was very, very interesting, and it's a similar challenge that we have been facing. In terms of that integration protocol, right, linking different data, like she also said, technically very difficult. In countries like ours where the information systems are not interoperable at all. How do you even bring those varieties or different data into one data lake before even you start to clean and standardize would be my first question. And second question is for Mr. Larson. Um, I mean, this is also something that, I mean, it's especially regarding the ethical dilemma of scrapping, right? There are a few examples in my country where university students were scrapping data from government environment department to get the pollution data, because government was not sharing data in open format of last 2 years or 3 years or database of data. So the student itself were taking that initiatives, and there were similar initiatives regarding getting price of vegetables and fruits and all that. So despite the fact that there was not authority from or approval from government to provide data, students were scrapping data for their own work. So where do you draw the line in terms of that ethical dilemma of scrapping would be my question. Thank you.
Another great question. Victor, would you like to come in and comment on the challenges of integrating different data sources? And then Gunnar, if you'd like to address the issue of scraping data, specifically government data, and where we draw the line.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. It actually is a very, very important issue, and I think it's very key question and concern from Dane's side in Colombia. In the case of our project, the main difficult for us was try to get some kind of key in order to start the link and the connection between the different administrative data. I think in the Colombian case, and particularly in DANE, these different systems and administrative data um, receive an special treatment because in DANE we have some kind of strategy to strengthen the administrative registers in the national statistical system. So these registers receive an technical analysis from our team in order to uh, convert these administrative registers in a statistical register. That's one of the first steps. And this implies the standardization of variables and the standardization of the way we transmit the information from one entity to another. And in this case, the SDMX standard is one of the key steps in order to get these interlinkages and this connection between the different administrative records. That's one of the first steps, but the advantage in the Colombian case is these programs to strengthen the administrative records in DANE and in other institutions in the country that easy the process of uh, link the different administrative sources. But it is a challenge. I understand the difficulty and the difficulty in terms of the political issue and the technical aspect as well.
Thank you, Victor.
Hello. My name is Haoyi. I'm the coordinator for the Intersecretary Working Group on Household Surveys. I also work for the UN Statistics Division. So just thinking about data integration and making data more interoperable, we've been working a lot to really think about how do we design. So it's really before we are doing data integration, if we're collecting data, how do we design our data collection, make sure they are already interoperable by design. Just to give you a few examples, for example, if you're doing census that is coming up or survey, are they geocoded? Do we have geospatial information? Are we collecting survey data using the same common standard and concept and definitions? And are we collecting some variables that respond to what Mamadou has talked about on smart estimation? Are we collecting some variables that can help smart estimation and data integration to link the different data sources? It's really to plan ahead of time, not just, of course, we get what we get, but if we're collecting data, just think about it before we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Gunnar, we're over time, but do you want to maybe share a very brief response to the question related to web scraping before we close?
Yes, so that was concerning the ethical dilemma, like where do you draw the line? Our approach is to try to have a good dialogue with the owners of the website. So, as I also said in the presentation, we try to check the website's terms of use and also what they allow and don't allow on their website. And we also try to have a dialogue if we want to web scrape from them. And if they don't allow it, our policy is to leave that website be and not to web scrape from that. So we try to respect the boundaries that the owners of the websites have set, and then try to find some other source instead.
Thank you. Thank you all for your interest, enthusiasm, and patience. And a special thanks to all of our virtual presenters, Francesca, and also a special thanks to Fariel Ahmed from UNSD, who coordinated this session virtually. So thank you all. Please feel free to come up to us if you have any additional questions. We'd be happy to connect you with any of the presenters or some of the other participating countries if there are further questions. Thank you again.